Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be putting on an ATI damper and a crank trigger kit on the SR20 S13. So we've got a ATI Super Damper to replace the stock crank pulley, offset power steering pump pulley, because this moves the belts forward 10mm, so that'll help so I can still run power steering, and then that there is a trigger kit. Basically make sure everything's in timing properly so we don't have any issues down the track. So I'll first things first, I'll take all that stuff out of the box and show you what's inside, and we'll go from there. Alright, so this is the EFI Solutions Tarks trigger kit. That's obviously the smaller plate that sits inside, that sits on the face of the pulley. That's the sensor, a couple of bits and bobs just to keep the sensor bolted in, and this is what it shoots the timing off of these tabs here. We've got the 10mm spacer for the steering rack, power steering pulley, and this is the ATI dampener. This is the front one, this is the power steering pulley on the front of the damper, some hardware to fix that to the main piece. This is the Super Damper. So this should take out pretty much all the harmonics. When you start to push power through an SR20, through a stock crank, you probably get quite a bit of vibration, so this should take all of that out. The motor has been built, so I'll just want to take all that risk out of it. I put too much time and money into this thing for a crank pulley to come off or vibrate and blow it all to pieces. So this would be a good fail-safe. I sort of recommend to anybody, if you've got, they're about $700-800 here in Australia, and they're probably cheaper overseas, but if you've got the extra money and you're pushing anything over, say 400 horsepower, this is probably a good investment. Actually, no, it is a good investment. It'll just save your whole motor if anything goes sideways. So we will take off these two belts. So this is the alternator and water pump, and this is the power steering. And that one in the middle is for my AC condenser, which I have in a box. I just haven't got it fitted up yet. So I'll grab some, probably need some 10 and 12mm bolts. We can back off these here. Don't know if you can really see that. So you got that one on there, the water pump doesn't move, and there's a bolt just in there that we can back out the power steering. So take them all tension, pop the belts off, and then crack on. So I've undone the two tensioning bolts down here that keep tension on the belt for the alternator and the water pump, and then the same on the power steering, just one at the bottom and one at the side. Once they're loose, you can basically just yank on the bottom of the belt and it'll pull it in, and you can just slide it off. Just like that. And then once the belts are off, all you got to do, 27mm bolt on the crank pulley. Either use a big breaker bar, 1/2-inch breaker bar and a pole. Make sure the car's in gear and the handbrake's on, because if you rock this, it'll probably rock the motor. Try and turn the motor over and it'll probably rock the gears back and forth. So make sure your handbrake's on, it's in gear. 27mm bolt, or if you've got a rattle gun, just stick it on the rattle gun and hopefully it breaks loose. We're going to use a little rattle gun that I picked up. 27mm bolt. And I did already break that, it wasn't that loose. So just zap it so it's free, and then put it in and tighten it in a couple of threads, because the next tool we're going to need a gear puller, and you don't want to put it against anything else. So I'll show you that now. So you're going to want to use something like this. This is a 3-arm or a jaw, or you can just use a 2-arm, doesn't really matter. Anything between, I think, as long as you get it over 100mm and no larger than 150, it should fit on the crank perfectly for an SR20. So I'll show you how to set this one up now. Alright, so you basically want to set the, if you've got a fan shroud, like a factory fan shroud, you're probably going to have to take it out. Well, not probably, you will have to take it out. If you've got thermos like I do, you've got a bit of room to work with. So essentially the puller sits in behind, I don't know, I can't really pick it up on the camera, but sits in behind the gear on the arm, both sides and on the bottom, and then sits against that bolt in the middle. And that there is a 19mm head, this piece here, and you essentially just wind the bolt in, and it'll pull this gear off the crankshaft backwards. So we'll go and do that and I'll show you what I mean. Cool, so I wound that in and just popped it off so we can see better, but it's actually pulled the crank pulley back. It sits pretty flush with this. So all you want to do is take out your crank bolt. You should be able to, probably need 2 hands for this, just wiggle this off. There we go. Nice and easy. You can see it's got a keyway mark, and that sits up against the crank there. And you've got a groove to lock it in, and this motor's been built so the front main should be in good nick, which it is. It's not leaking any oil. We can go and grab the new ATI dampener and push it on and make sure it's lined up with that keyway there. See if I can get it to focus. Yeah, it's a bit hard to see, but basically as long as you line the new one up with that keyway, you can walk it in with the bolt and seat it. Nice and easy. Alright, so first things first, we're going to assemble the trigger wheel. As per the instructions on the EFI Solutions or Tark's website, you take this outer with the countersunk facing out and place it onto the black inner with the, I guess, cutouts facing down. So drop it on like that. Now, the specs for this is to use red Loctite on these bolts here. I don't have that, I've only got blue. And the ATI specs say to use blue Loctite and all of their stuff, so I'm going to use a bit of blue on these countersunk bolts and throw them in here. And they don't give me a torque rating, so I'm just going to nip them up as tight as I can with a 5mm Allen. And then, yeah, go from there. Alright, cool, so we got the countersunk bolts in. Just worked them in with, yeah, it's actually a 4mm Allen bolt head, which, my bad. Anyways, you basically want to put a blue Loctite on all the threads, put them all in one, like sort of working in a circle, and then do like a star pattern like you would a wheel or anything like that. And just be careful because it's going into a bit of aluminium. But if you work in a star pattern, it should pull them all in pretty tight, and just do it a couple of times, because if this goes loose and has play in it, then you're going to get an incorrect reading and it could cost you your motor. Same as not having one, so best to take precautions. Now what we do from here is we basically take this piece and we drop it onto the ATI like that, and Tarks give you some extended Allen bolts to run in place of these here. You just have to use the washers that come with the ATI kit. So we're going to go ahead and basically fit all of this up like so. So I'll point out the way you actually put it on. So you've got the bolts going through the outer into the inner with sort of like a recessed piece on the back. You flip that and then that sits on this ring here. So you can basically line up the bolt holes and drop it on and it'll sit locked in. So it's all one piece. And then we can take the power steering pulley and drop that on, line it up, and that'll sit sort of locked in on a collar as well. So as long as you've got all the bolt holes lined up, you can take these extended bolts, get the washers from there, bit of blue Loctite as per the ATI specs, and then it calls for 16 foot-pound. So make sure you got a torque wrench. This is a small little 1/4 inch torque wrench, which is perfect. Set to 16 pound. We'll drop them in and tighten it all up. So this is all torqued down to 16 pound. I probably made it look harder than it is. Funnily enough, 16 pounds is actually quite a lot on a small piece that moves in your hand. So just grab a rag, stand on the side, and that seemed to work the best for me. These teeth are pretty sharp, so they cut your hand up, and yeah, just makes it a bit easier. Anyways, now that we've got the trigger kit on, power steering pulley on the crank side on, we can go and slip this in and slowly walk it in with the bolts. Alright, so we've got the crankshaft pulley slipped back on. It's obviously not all the way in. Give it a few taps, you should feel it locate via that keyway. Just stick your phone up, take a photo. It's a bit hard to see through the camera on the phone, but
that keyway is seated nicely, it's in the right spot. So what we can do now is we grab that crank bolt, wind it in, and we should be able to just zap it on.
Alright, I did a bit of a tester and it sort of pulled in straight away, but if you just grab whether you've got a rattle gun or a wrench, just slowly tighten it in and it should pull in. Yeah, it walked in a bit more, which is good. And then give it a few ugga-duggers if you've got a rattle gun, and basically just grab a torque wrench, and this should be between 105 and 112, I'm pretty sure. You just want to make sure, definitely do throw a torque wrench on that, because if that walks out then it's game over. So easiest thing to do is just grab a torque wrench and check that. Alright, we're going to assemble the crank trigger sensor and bracket at my desk because it's just easier. Now this is the sensor, this is the bracket that basically you'll take out 2 oil pump bolts, which I'll show you on the cover, that'll fix. And this is the little bracket that sits on top of that to hold the sensor. So you get 2 sort of Allen bolt heads, 5mm Allen bolt heads, put a spring washer and then a flat washer, which come in the kit. They fix this bracket into the actual bracket that fixes to the oil pump. And then these here don't require washers or anything because they are countersunk, which replace the oil pump bolts. And then these little 2 ring spacers, ring bolts, whatever you want to call them. One thread's on, you'll thread the whole sensor in, or push the sensor in, and the other one goes on the other end. And basically you can move the sensor closer or further away to the actual trigger, which I'll show you in the car. So I'll quickly just assemble this and we'll throw it in the car. Cool, so bracket and sensor are all assembled. Now for the sensor, just sort of put it about halfway in. You can make your final adjustments in there. You won't need any thread locker on the bracket bolts because there's a spring washer and a flat washer and they'll compress down. And then I'll show you where these go. So we'll go underneath the car and pop out the oil pump cover bolts and pop this in.
So underneath the car you've got these 2 bolts and the oil pump. You're essentially going to take these out, and this bracket and these 2 bolts here are going to replace it. So on my car they're an 8mm head bolt, but they might be different on yours, so just be careful because obviously this is all alloy. If you break that, you're in for a bad time, so just be gentle. So I'll quickly back these out, throw the bracket up and put the new bolts in. Alright, cool, so we've got the 2 bolts into the, backed out the 2 bolts from the oil pump housing and threaded in the new ones. Now I had to take off like 1/2 mil of these bolts. I'm assuming it's because there was silicone in behind it from when the engine was built, and to get it to seat properly to stop the bracket from wiggling. But that worked a treat. And then just put a bit of Loctite on the locking rings for the sensor, and got an air gap of 1 mil using a feeler gauge wherever I've put it. Using one of these, paired up the 0.5 mil and the 0.53 mil to get just over 1 mil, and set that gap in there so the sensor will pick up off these properly. So that's all done. I'll get a shot of the top and that's it. Nice and easy. So that's it. Nice and easy. All done. Trigger kit on. New crank pulley on. All I've got to do now is swap out the power steering pulley, which looks like a 12 or a 14mm bolt, and throw the new one on and put the belts back on and we're good to go. So it's a 17mm bolt on the power steering pump. Just get something that you can lock off the pulley with. Once you've locked it off, try not to break your shroud like I almost just did. Zap it off. Make sure you keep that. Once you've got the new one on the threads, hand tighten the bolt in, grab a rag and an extension and just put it through one of the holes just to keep it in place. Nice. Now we can go and throw our belts on. So we'll start with the first one back, which is the water pump and the alternator. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I think I might need to get a different sized power steering pulley, but we'll see. So throw them on, get them tensioned up the same way that we took them off. And so I probably will need a, oh, not probably, I will
You will need a smaller length belt for the power steering just after you do this. So this is a 4PK 880. I say if you went sort of, I'll go and get one and I'll see if it works, like a 840 or something like that, and just bring the power steering pump right in. See how we go. So I'll shoot in the shops and I'll grab one now. So unfortunately, the 880 belt that sits around the power steering pump and the new pulley is too long. I went to the auto shop, tried a bunch of different sizes. They only have an 850 and then the next jump is an 875. 850 is just too small, 825 is way too big, so I'm not going back again today because I think I went there 4 or 5 times. I'll go back tomorrow, I'll order in an 860 and that should do the trick. But I guess all that's left now to do is take one of these big stickers and add it to the toolbox, I think. And then, yeah, nice and easy. Doesn't require a great deal of skill and or tools. Anyone can do this. It's really straightforward. So if you're interested in it and you want to provide some longevity and some safety to your motor, I think it's a great bit of kit. Even without the trigger kit, just the actual brand new harmonic balancer is a good thing. Because yeah, like I said at the start of the video, if you try to push over 400 and something's just slightly off on the stock pulley, it'll vibrate and you could lose your motor, which is not fun. So, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll keep cracking on with the next ones. See ya.